All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. More people will probably start to trickle in, but first of all, I'd like to thank all of those who are joining us today in our webinar Wednesday series. Today, I'm gonna be showing you KeyShot. This is a very powerful and very intuitive piece of software that allows you to take your finished models, your parts and assemblies, and bring them into the software and start setting up scenes for rendering with textures, colors, lighting, scenes, and which in turn provides the ability to market that, or even if it's internal, it gives you a good idea of what the part or product can and will look like in real world scenarios. So this is a very powerful and intuitive piece of software. Before we get started, just going to give you a little intro to myself. My name is Keith Morris. I'm a technical specialist here at PDSVISION. My background is in 3D design, additive manufacturing, animation and rendering. And today we're going to be heavily talking about the rendering aspect and how that works in KeyShot. Just a brief history on PDSVISION and who we are. We were formerly Boundary Systems, and we are the technology leader in PTC's software suite and preferred services provider. We also offer other capabilities such as cloud, professional training, consulting, and we also have our own help desk. This is just a timeline showing PDS, how we became a part of PDS as Boundary Systems, which started in 2006, and then in 2018, PDS, we were acquired by PDSVISION. These are some of our partners. PTC is the big one. KeyShot, which is what we're talking about today. We also have Moldex 3D and ZWCAD, just to name a few others. Before we get into KeyShot, I'm going to be talking about this concept that we at PDS live by and how we help you as a company in your manufacturing process. It's called Digital Thread, and it's an approach to PTC software suite and how it integrates with other individual applications and how and where they're utilized in your manufacturing process. So this leads to reduced time to market. It also reduces downtime and costs. So this is a thread that continues to stay through your entire process, from concept to design to early production, all the way through final manufacturing. So just to talk about some KeyShot functions and benefits, if you have Creo products already and you're using parametric to build your parts and assemblies, KeyShot can actually bring in native part files, but that is not the only type of file it can bring in. It is important to understand that KeyShot can also bring in several other types of 3D files as well. It can bring in step files, it can bring in OBJ files, and so forth. It has a fairly long list of what it can import. This might sound strange, but you do not need 3D design experience necessarily to work in KeyShot. Yes, it helps that you understand a 3D digital workspace, but this software is specific for rendering images in the end. It's not outputting another 3D file unless you're 3D printing something in the end, but we'll touch on that a little later. I mentioned this because it's important to know that KeyShot can be used both by your marketing departments, and they could also work with your design engineers as well. It's these companies such as New Balance or Under Armour or Coca-Cola. A lot of the products you see on billboards or posters are often just rendered out in KeyShot. And all they do is take 3D models from the departments that make them and just use the rendering power of KeyShot to create advertisements or even internal documents. I mentioned this earlier, but KeyShot is very intuitive. It's fairly simple. It's nice that you can easily find certain options and functions. You can also use, what's nice too is you can use a combination of both KeyShot's material libraries, which is very extensive. You can sign up with Luxion and you can get access to thousands of other materials that are in their cloud and download them right into the software. But you can also use custom made materials and textures as well. So high resolution photographs, and yes, even logos and labels. So you can use a combination of both of those in KeyShot as well. If you are using Creo's Render Studio, that loosely bases it off KeyShot's rendering system. However, you will find that KeyShot is superior to Creo's Render Studio. And as I mentioned before, it's suited for both the marketing, design team, and CAD designers alike. One last thing I wanted to point out is KeyShot can render using your graphics card instead of your computer cores. So it is very important that that you use a PC that has a powerful graphics card. It will run a lot smoother, and it also, by using the GPU, you can also see the renders in real time as well. I'm going to show off some samples here from KeyShot. Just some of the things that we've done here at PDS. There's on the left image is just a ring from a jewelry company that we had set up. On the right is just a sculpted concept or a race car concept using our colors. And you can even use, such as the image on the right, you can render out glass and liquid simulation as well. On the left is a early concept of a luxury car seat, which I'll be showing in the demo today. So with that, let's get into the demo here. The first thing I have up here that I'm just going to use very quickly is I just wanted to show the extent of the material library. So in this interface here on KeyShot, I'm going to turn on my GPU power and my denoise. If you hear the computer fans, I apologize, but this does use a lot of power. This interface is very simple to use. As soon as you bring in a model, you could go to import and you can bring in step files, part files. These 3 chess pieces are OBJ files, so it's very extensive what you can bring in. And then up here you have your library where you have textures, colors, materials, and right here down at the very bottom left is where I have access to the cloud library, and this gives me access to dozens, hundreds, even thousands of more materials that I could even search for and just easily download them right into KeyShot. So I just wanted to show you guys that real quick. It's nice because in your materials, this breaks it down by type. You could also choose any of these materials and tell it to be one of your favorites. And all you have to simply do is just drag and drop them onto the models. So if I go to my downloads right there, these are some I downloaded before. And these can be just different types of materials. There's some of those might not look so good. There's like a mirror glass texture. You can see the reason the GPU is on is so I could get real-time rendering right within this viewport. And I'd say it's about 90% rendered, maybe 95. The rendered image always looks the best in the end. But these are all different types of materials. That there's ceramic that I could throw on there. Over here to the left is where I have my scene, where I could select these pieces. But to the other side of that is the material tab, where I could further edit these materials as well. So, you know, refractive index, the color. So a few of these other ones, like marble, there's like a wood grain texture. So these are just simply I just wanted to bring these up real quick to show how easy it is to go through your material library and just you drag them right onto the models, and oftentimes they don't even need further editing. So I'm going to open the main file here that we have that I'm working with you guys today. So you saw a quick earlier design snapshot in the PowerPoint with this car seat. So this is something I wanted to further touch on and explore in terms of other types of materials and how to use both custom materials and textures, as well as adding a label. I have this seat right here separated from the cushion and the back cushion here, because I wanted this to have a different material than the rest of the seat. So in my favorites here, I set these aside as I was looking for them earlier. I just wanted to, we have aluminum here that I was going to drag on the sliders here for the headrest. And that's how simple it is to use, guys. It is just dragging these right on there. I know I keep emphasizing that, but I keep mentioning it because there may be some marketing design teams out there that feel like they can't work with this software because they're dealing with 3D models. But if they know several other design suite packages, they could definitely pick this up in no time. In addition to that, there's a plethora of resources and tutorials to watch to learn some more in-depth features, as well as some basic features as well. I have this leather texture that I was going to put on this main seat right here. So we got like a black leather right there. So this part right here, the actual seat where the back and the cushion is, I have this material, edit material. So earlier on for the webinar, I did go ahead and add a custom material to this, and I adjusted some settings to allow me to get what you normally see on this is sort of a pattern and a different type of material in this area as well. So how you get that So I have both color and a bump, and those two follow each other in terms of your height and your width and your UVs as well. And the bump means it's just giving it a, when you render it out, it'll give it a slight depth. There'll be more than just the color. There'll actually be like a slight bump in the render, which you can start to see a little bit here as well. How to add that is just by when you're in this material tab right here, and then under the sub tab, you can click on color, and then it prompts you to bring in a file. So once it's brought in, you can easily edit and manipulate the width and the height, and even shift the UVs, which is just the internal map of that part. I even went a step further. If you click on this labels tab, I have our logo right there, and all I had to do was add it in just by taking this plus sign and throwing it in there and finding it in a folder. So we have our logo up there too. So this is already showing a combination between a label or a logo, which, by the way, it has to be in PNG file format, because that gives it what's called an alpha background, which means there's no background color or material at all. It's just blank. So programs like this will recognize that, and it will just have the logo on the back there. So I have these plastic pieces here too, the side panels and the back panel. For the headrest, I'm also going to throw this texture on there. So now you can start to get an idea of what this is all, a strong concept is. Whether this is finished or not, you're already getting a strong concept of this car seat. For the plastic pieces, the plastic side panels, I can find a plastic material. There's several already built in here. And I'm gonna go back to my materials here. This breaks it down by there's architectural, glass, gemstones, there's metals. These are the ones I've downloaded before, but under plastic here, it breaks it down on all kinds of plastic types and colors. I can choose any of those and change the color just by going to the diffuse option. But let's say I wanted like a clear, like a gray texture. So I've selected this hard texture, and it looks black. I can edit this material. Right there. And if I go to diffuse, I could just change this color to whatever I want. It could be any color. That's what diffuse means in here. Maybe if I wanted it more of something closer to our colors, like right there. When I brought these pieces in, originally they were linked, but I unlinked them because sometimes you want to be able to separate which materials go to which parts, but that doesn't necessarily mean I can't just drag it back on the other piece as well. And now anytime I change that material, it will actually change both of them. So you can see I kind of changed the diffuse there, kind of more of a darker grayish purple like that. So we'll go with that. These buttons that move the seat forward or backward or tilting it. And then sometimes there's a third button that's round, that might change your lumbar or anything like that. I want to use maybe a different plastic material on there, or even just a different color altogether. I also think I want to show off some of these metal textures here. There's a lot of metal textures in here as well. It also breaks it down here by here's colors. That's if you just want a straight colors. Textures, which allow for displacement or bump maps, which give you that little bit of depth you're looking for. And then favorites is where you're saving. You can go to your materials and right click and choose go to favorites. There's an automotive section here as well that I made a favorite where there's colors, materials, models. If KeyShot has a lot of sample models to work with, so you can choose that as well. Environments and backplates we'll get into here just in a little bit, but you don't have to stick to this plain light gray background. You can change your lighting, you can change your background and make this look like it's in a studio or a part of a scene as well. So I'm going to go back to my materials here. Let's say I just wanted some chrome material on these. Kind of zoom in and see. And then just by adding it to those, there's different chrome materials. You can kind of preview. It's nice too. You can preview it as you're dragging over those. Kind of see that. I won't have a gold-plated seat, but and then so there's the material down here that those three pieces were on. I could change the type of metal it is too. There's brass, chrome, copper, gold. Any of those I could just change, and then it would change how that looks in the end. I'm gonna drag this back here. So let's say I'm fairly happy with this concept, this design, and now I want to start affecting the actual scene. How do we start changing the lighting in here as well? There are a lot of environments. So under environments is your lighting setups, which you can manipulate just like you can materials. So you could just easily drop and drag them in the background. Any of these you can manipulate. 2 panels. However you want to set that up, depending which, there's different environment types. I'm just going back here. So those are studio. You could put in an outdoor scene or an interior scene, it just depends what your part is and what you're setting up. There's a studio backdrop. This, it changes kind of the area there. And any of those you can change the lighting and where things are placed. So let's see, we could pick kind of this studio backdrop for now. And then under this environments tab is where my settings are as far as how many lights and the brightness and the contrast. So I could bump this up some here. And there's lighting under here too. So if I wanted to change from basic to product to interior, bump up the shadow quality and my how many ray bounces there are. A lot of this is affecting how this ultimately will render. If I kind of scoot this to the left and I render this out, we can leave an area for text or other types of information. I'll rotate this the other way and place the camera this way so you can see the buttons. So there's a lot to play around with in here. It can be a little bit overwhelming in the aspect that there just simply is a lot to choose from. But if you have a concept and you know what the look is that you want to achieve, you'll be able to set it up pretty easily. under this environment here, I could change the color of my ground shadows depending what type of, what's in there and what type of color lights it might have. And here's where I could change the direct lighting. I'm gonna cancel out of there. Yeah, there would be a lot more to cover, and there's other features such as animating, and there's effects such as smoke. A lot of those are more advanced and in-depth features. So this is something that's and then when you're finally ready to render it out, you could just choose the render button here, and you can choose your DPI, which is your dots per inch. If the higher it is, the higher resolution it'll be. A typical standard one is 600, and this is where you choose your dimensions. So right now it's just 19. It's just your 1080. I'm just going to choose my desktop for this sample image, and I'll just leave a car seat. But here you also have the ability to your still image or your animation. So I'm just going to render this out now. Takes a second. Even with a beefy graphics card, it could still take a little bit of a long time, depending what's in there and what the lighting is you have. And whatever questions you guys have, I will address here shortly at the end. Okay, we're good there. And close that. Open the picture. So this is just a PNG, which is an image type that can easily be brought into Photoshop or any image editing software, and it could be added onto from here. So at this point, I do see some of the questions that I'll start looking at now. So let me get to my window here. These are good questions. Glenn has a few. I'll get to these individual questions first. Today, Anand, I won't be showing any animation, but you can set up water and glass in the scene. And those are actually material types that you bring in. You can bring in your own model as well, as far as what the design of the glass is as well. In addition to that, you could put a PNG label over the glass as well, so you can have your logo or label on the glass. All right, there's Mitchell. Can you output a render with layers such as objects and environments? So when you go to this render tab here, you can do render layers, but this is just in terms of passes, not necessarily what's on each layer. So you could render the diffuse layer and the lighting layer, and then those will save as separate files. So those will be your layer types as well. Glenn has quite a few questions. I will have these questions after the webinar, and I'm going to address those questions to you separately, since there's a few on here. But one of your questions that stuck out to me was, if your model is one object, you can actually separate the model. So if I wanted to separate this, and this is before you do any texturing, there's a couple different options. There's split separate objects and split object surfaces, and then it takes you into an environment where it'll pick up what's separate. So if this car seat had, if I brought this all in, the headrest and the plastic panels all as one piece, I'd be able to go in and separate that. And yes, this is only for rendering. In order to make any changes to the model itself, you have to go back to the modeling software. And then Glenn, yeah, I will address your other questions separately after the webinar. You'll be getting an email from me. Edgar, there are several webinars. Not there. We have previous webinars on KeyShot in years past. So you can look to our page to look through those as well. Looks like, yeah, and then some of those will get into more details as far as lighting scenes go, and changing those lights. And there you can set up lights to look like LED or emissive lights. John, you're asking if you can use it to arrange and render whole rooms, furnitures, and walls. Absolutely. There's even some backdrops that might be like those kind of settings. So you know, if you have all of those models, you just bring them in and start setting them up, and putting them into position. James, you're asking, how do you set up a workflow like KeyShot 12? If you could be a little more specific to that, are you talking about if you're talking about just a general workflow? I think the first question is, where are you getting your models from? If you have extensive textures and materials of your own, I would start to create your own library of those in a separate folder. And then same with the models. You want to make sure you're as organized as possible. But I know I'm just kind of answering that generally, but if you have a more specific, you know, what as far as workflow goes. Other questions were, the rest of them were from Glenn here. Oh, Mitchell, I'm sorry, I missed your question if you're still here. Color industry standard options like IE or Pantone. That depends if you're looking to print. A lot of Pantone users like to use that standard for like actual printing, which you can do in here. Your last question, Glenn, or your last two, I'm trying to answer as many as I can for you. EXR format, I'll have to look into that. Your question after that was if the KeyShot found in Creo the same functionality in standalone. I think you're referring to the KeyShot plugin within Creo. All that is if you make an update or a change to a model, you can bring it back. You can bring it back into KeyShot by choosing to save the changes, and then it'll automatically update in KeyShot. But so that's all that functionality allows for. If you have that and it's active, then you can use that when you make changes to the model. So that's a nice functionality. And again, I will answer the rest of your questions separately after this webinar. And Edgar, I will send you some links in a separate email so you can see some of those other webinars and some other resources in regards to something more detailed. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks again for joining, and we'll see you on the next one. Glad you guys were here today.